Around 2012, I heard that the State Department was decommissioning its embassies, and in particular, I heard about the one in Norway, in Oslo. I started to think about ways in which I could creatively contribute to raising awareness about their importance and finding ways to try to preserve them. Normally, when an embassy is decommissioned, people take the artworks out and they take the important artifacts out, and a lot is left behind. And that fence was left behind. Fences live in a world of straight lines. They determine a single line and therefore a plane, and they set up a relationship of frontality between us, of confrontation. I began to collaborate with the workmen that were operating the tractors to indicate to them how to transform the fence, where to bend, where to twist, how to turn. I wanted the fence to acquire a shape to show that it had gone from being in one place, from being two-dimensional to being three-dimensional, to enacting all of these passages, this back and forth, these relationships that are part of what it means to be an embassy, to enter into dialogue, to exchange, to communicate. There is, I think, for me, a real relationship between the way that we took them down and what it means to have a dialogue with another person or even another entity, where you really don't know what the outcome of the conversation is going to be, and you're trying to work with the other party to try to figure that out together. And so it was very much for me a process of dialoguing and exchanging with the material itself to see what would come out of it. Part of what was interesting to me as I was making these sculptures was thinking about their historical significance. What were the stories associated with these fences? How could I understand those stories? And so I began to do research on the stories that happened at the embassy. And those stories really were documented in the treaties that were signed between the United States and Norway. Those treaties are the final outcome of months, if not years, of negotiations between diplomats. As the words quite literally started to jump off the page for me, they were also starting to jump off the page as sculptures, and I began to see the relationship between some of those words and some of the sculptures that I had made. And so part of the process was to think about which of these sculptures really relates to some of these treaties. And so I started to manipulate the treaties in the same way that I had manipulated the fences. Treaties also live in a world of straight lines. They end up becoming lines of text, and it seems so rational and so clear and so predetermined, but you know that behind all those straight lines of text are these really convoluted and complicated discussions, exchanges, where diplomats are going back and forth, not knowing what the real outcome of their conversations is going to be, and finally it does become a treaty. The fence and the treaties are objects of diplomacy, just like the embassy itself. And they both set the stage for diplomacy, but also enable diplomacy to take place. For me, it was important that these works speak about diplomacy, but also spark the diplomatic imagination as we think forward about what diplomacy can be in the future.